Member Steffi and Member Rodriguez, we are testing some audio equipment on our end. Please be patient.
No, don't move. Hello? Wouldn't work.
Right, no.
I don't even know what it is.
Okay. Ooh. Hold on. Let's go. It's gonna have that echo.
So I think. So everyone needs.
All right. I know. Testing.
Why does mine?
Testing.
But if we all turn the volume down and she talks. Then.
No. Okay. Hi, folks. We are having some technical difficulties and we are trying to square it away. We're zooming in right now. So please bear with us while we figure this out.
Yeah, Henry, that's all. Henry, when it's white, that's all. When it's red, it's light. No, red is light. There you go.
Yeah, turn the.
Yeah.
Okay, if all cab members that are present, if you could turn your cameras on, please.
Sorry, I can't. I told you why.
Thank you. There we go. All right. I'm going to turn it over to you, Leslie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. And if you've been with us for a few minutes now, we have had just a tad bit of technical difficulties, but fabulous staff has gotten us online successfully, and we'll be holding at this moment the Community Advisory Board, our regular meeting And I'm calling this to order. We will have roll call by our staff.
All right, now. Cool. All right, so member Chair Graves,
Present.
thank you. Vice Chair Weeks,
Present.
member Barnett. Member Inocencio.
Present.
Member Hong,
Present.
I think, yeah, we're gonna make it. Member Lange.
Present.
Cool. Member Diaz de Leon,
Present.
member Ron. Member Rodriguez,
Present.
member Sierra,
Present.
and member Steffi.
Present.
Okay, let the record show that everyone, all members of are here on attendance.
Thank you. With full transparency, we're just share with the public right now that we are all in a room together, pretty much. I don't believe that we have any of our members online at this time, but they may be joining us. How we are joining you this evening online is that we are all on our phones. So if it takes just a little bit of time for us to unmute and be heard, please be patient with us, and we do thank you for your patience during this meeting. Going on to agenda item number 2, it will be public comments.
Sorry, just there's an echo for whoever's unmuted in the room.
With no public comments, we'll go on to item number 3, which will be the approval of the minutes. Our last minutes are from November 16th. And that was a special meeting in which we started at 7 p.m. The meeting minutes were attached in our agenda as a link. Do we have any comments from the board members for those minutes, adjustments or edits?
And just
Hearing
whoever's not
none.
speaking in the room,
We'll
you hear
go
me?
on to a roll call vote for approval. Oh, thank you. It's been only, what, a month and a half or something, and I'm forgetting about our motions. So do we have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Member Ron, and seconded by Vice Chair Weeks. So we'll have a roll call vote for approval.
Okay. Chair Graves,
Approved.
thank you. Vice Chair Weeks,
Approved.
member Barnett,
Approved.
member Hong,
Approved.
Oh,
or Hong.
Huang, wrong, close.
Approved, but I tried to.
Yeah. Member Inocencio.
Approved.
Oh, yeah, he would be.
Hold on
such
a second.
Yeah, yeah.
First of all, did everyone put their phones on mute unless you're speaking? Completely on mute.
Okay. Point of clarification, if you are a new member or if you were not here for that meeting, you have to abstain from voting for the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Inocencio.
Approved.
Member Lange,
Approved, but can the people who are not speaking mute because there's an echo on my end?
someone's not muted.
In the sky.
I think Jorge Inocencio.
I'm not connected to audio. Now, but.
Okay, ready? Member Diaz de Leon,
Abstain.
thank you. Member Ron,
Yes.
Member Rodriguez,
Yes.
Member Sierra,
Abstain.
and Member Steffi.
Approve.
Okay, let the record show that, I would say that, all CAB members approve, except for Henry's, member, Hong, member Sierra, member Diaz de Leon, all abstained.
Thank you for that. We will move on to item number 4, which is CAB announcements. Our CAB members may share community news of interest to the CAB as well as a whole. And CAB members may also announce upcoming community events that may be of interest to the CAB. This is a time when CAB members may also announce departure from the meeting early or any other announcement that may affect the meeting. And so with that, I would like to welcome our new members to the CAB, all being sworn in prior to the CAB meeting, and open up this time for the new CAB members to give just a couple minutes. So really, truly 120 seconds of an introduction of yourself. And then at the end of the meeting, before we adjourn, we will introduce our current CAB members. So at this time, let's move to Henry Huang for your introduction.
Hi, so my name is Henry Huang, and
I believe he's muted.
Is that better?
So I recently ran for city council, and then I want to stay active in the community, so I was asked by our mayor to serve on CAB. So here I am. And I'd like to announce a few upcoming events for the Redwood Empire Chinese Association in celebration of Chinese New Year. This Saturday, they have something at the Children's Museum from 10 to 3. And then on February 4th, there's going to be a lion dance performance at the Northwest Santa Rosa Library from 2 to 3. And on February 5th, there's going to be a lion dance performance in Healdsburg. I think it's in the morning. And I look forward to being, part of this, serving on the CAB. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Huang. And now we'll move to Member Sierra.
Thank you.
And remember to unmute.
I'm Yvonne Sierra, and I've been here all my life in Sonoma County. I've been here all my life in Sonoma County, and this is where I raised my family, and they still reside here. And I had a career of 22 years at Keysight Technologies, where Jorge works at. So the second part of my life, I'm looking to serve my community more, and I would like to stay active in the CAB, and I was appointed by City Councilman Eddie Alvarez, and I'm here to do him proud, and you too. Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you, Member Sierra. And now Member Diaz de Leon.
My name is Ariana Diaz de Leon, and I grew up in Napa County, but I moved to Santa Rosa in 2015. So I've been a resident here for quite a few years. And I previously, years ago, worked at Sonoma State, where I was a data analyst, and then I worked at the Community Foundation of Sonoma County. And now I'm at Santa Rosa Community Health, where I'm the program and community engagement manager. And so I'm looking to just become more involved in learning about the concerns of residents of Santa Rosa. And I was previously on the Commission on the Status of Women for Sonoma County. So now that I've come off that, I'd like to find other ways to become involved. And this is a great thing to do. So I'm glad to be here.
Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself, and I will now open it up to our CAB members for any announcements that you may have.
Through the chair. I have an announcement.
And back to Member Diaz de Leon.
There are school vaccine clinics that are going to be taking place in the next month. And a few of those are going to be in Santa Rosa. There was one today in Petaluma, but there will be school vaccine clinics at Shepherd Elementary next week, February 2nd, and then at Taylor Mountain Elementary on February 9th. And after that, there may be some at Elsie Allen High School and Steel Lane Elementary. And these are being put on by the county and by SCO, with other partners such as Santa Rosa Community Health also participating in it. But there are free vaccines available for anyone in the community. So that's something that I'd like the residents to know about.
And thank you for that. I also want to make mention to welcome, I believe, members Rodriguez and member Lange to the meeting, if I'm correct. Okay, yeah. And member Rodriguez, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I just want to let everyone know, unfortunately, I probably will have to leave a little after 7. I'm traveling for work, so I had another
Member
obligation.
Rodriguez. Because I think all of our, if you give us just a moment, we've all turned our volumes down in order to not have feedback in the room. So you're perfectly okay, but we need to have some volume in the room to be able to hear you. So member Rodriguez, if you can go again, thank you.
No, thank you. I just want to let the cab know, unfortunately, I will have to depart early. I'm traveling for work and unable to attend the full meeting this evening.
And I'm going to defer to staff because staff had the microphone on. I think some of us in the room, we could not hear member Rodriguez. So if you can maybe summarize or repeat.
Of course, it was mentioned by Member Rodriguez that she will need to be leaving the meeting early this evening. I think Member Rodriguez, if you'd like to restate that, I've turned the volume up on my device, so hopefully it can be shared amongst those here.
No, I apologize. I'm traveling for work, so I do have to leave the meeting early. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you again to everybody for bearing with us as I put my hand over my camera, but I am really still here. So also welcome to member Steffi, who has joined us online as well. At this time, I recognize member Lange for CAB announcements.
Sweet. Next month is Black History Month. And so there are a number of programs and events. I will send a full newsletter through the staff to send the members so everyone can calendar them. Most will be available by link from the NAACP website. I hope for those who have not participated in activities before that you find a way to engage more now than ever before. And there are a slew of events up and down the county, and a few will continue into March. As soon as I have dates, I will likely be able to share those at the end of the month for February's or at February's meeting as well.
Thank you, member Lange. Appreciate that. Also, I'm looking around the room to see if there's any hands, and I see Vice Chair Weeks.
Actually, happening concurrently right now is a presentation by Santa Rosa Water concerning water resiliency and long-term planning for water resiliency in the county. And I don't recall how many more times they're hosting these. I think there's at least one more. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to certainly engage with the city on that topic, as it's all very relevant to what we are doing here in the county. And contrary to popular belief, we are still in a drought. So thank you.
Thank you. With no other hands up for cab announcements, I would like to announce that tomorrow at 5 o'clock in Courthouse Square is the dedication ceremony for Unum, which is the public art piece that today the fence went down and people, I hear, were standing under it and taking wonderful pictures, which is exactly what that was meant to do. It is a project that near and dear to my heart. I actually served on many committees picking out the artist and the selection committee for what type of art was going to be in Courthouse Square. So 5 o'clock tomorrow evening, I believe that there will be music and a little dedication ceremony, and Una means oneness, if I am correct. So with that, oneness, let's go to the oneness of being part of the public here and bring it to public comment at this time for agenda item number 4.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
All right, well, thank you, and thanks for all the announcements. Moving right along to staff updates, agenda item number 5. This time is reserved for the city staff to provide a briefing on issues of interest, and no action will be taken on these matters except to possibly place a particular item on a future agenda for consideration. So would that be you, Daniel? Daniel, thank you.
Cool. All right, just some of the stuff that we have for staff updates. Some of you know we had the In Response event on January 19th last week at LC Allen. We had 52 people show up to that event, so I would say it was pretty jam-packed for the amount of space that we had. It was in the library. Everyone got fed. They got the presentation on In Response by Katie Swan. We were able to break out into different group sessions so everyone can give feedback and get an understanding of In Response. Obviously positive and negative, of course, but I would say more positive than anything. Some of the negatives would probably be something around, the hospital is getting full with people coming in Response having to drop off. But other than that, positive feedback as far as, people getting served, de-escalating situations through In Response. So that's a presentation that's going to be given to everyone here on the CAB next month. So for the next CAB meeting, In Response will come here to present. They have posted the recording of the event. So if you weren't there, you can watch it on YouTube. It's on the Santa Rosa City's YouTube page. And that's where you can find the recording of the event. Another thing that we're working on is our district town halls. That's how we're going to get the CAB involved in planning out 7 town halls in 7 of each districts. We're hoping to start this by April, but this is going to require coordination of each of the council members and each of their districts, as well as securing some of the locations for these town halls. But if you have any interest in any of these districts, if it pertains to yours, feel free to let me know how you'd like to support, whether it's hosting or doing some of the outreach for this district. That would be great. I think the last one is obviously Magali is not in the room. So right now we are having Danielle help us. So praise the Lord right now. But that's our staff updates for now, unless Danielle has some.
All right, can you hear me online? Folks online? Yeah, okay, great. So as Danny mentioned, for some of our more seasoned CAB members, Magali Tellez is no longer with us here tonight. She is not with the city anymore. She's taken a role with the Boys and Girls Club in Roseland. So we're super happy for her. We'll miss her. And as Danny mentioned, I am here helping him out. get knowledgeable and learn his role here with the cab before I step away again. So this is temporary. In addition to that, we are also very lucky to have our new assistant city manager, Dariel Dunstan, who is online with us today. He is going to be providing a lot of support and guidance to our team as we move through this transition with Magali leaving and as we try to figure out what the next steps are for our team. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. And at this time, are there any questions from our CAB members for staff? There are no questions from CAB members. We'd like it to take this to public comment. Are there any public comments?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. That concludes agenda item number 5. And we're moving right along to agenda item number 6, which are our scheduled items. 6.1 is a special presentation around bus stops and an iterative process. We have Yuri Colson here as a transit planner with the City of Santa Rosa Transportation and Public Works. And they will provide the CAB with an overview of the transit planning service and framework and information on bus stops. We have had questions in the CAB about bus stops in the past. So we're looking forward to this presentation. Yuri, you have your laptop. And so you can unmute, I will mute and take it away.
Great. Thank you so much for hosting this presentation. My name is Yuri Kozlin. I'm with the City of Santa Rosa's Transit Division, which is within Transportation and Public Works Department for the City of Santa Rosa. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. So I'll just keep, I'm gonna get my presentation up as well. I'll start sharing. Should I continue? No, I think I already have. Can you see the presentation? Yeah, great. So yeah, so I'm a planner. There's in our department we have a deputy director in Public Works, and there's 2 planners, myself and another planner, and we have a administrative analyst, technology analyst. We have a few people that work customer service that are either answering the phones or down at the transit mall. And then we have around 45 drivers at this point. So we're going through a bit of a, this kind of, during the pandemic, we were able to provide a good bit of service. And then kind of in the last year, we've had a lot of retirements and pandemic related issues that have caused us to have we're limited by our service delivery by the number of employees we have at this point. So, but that's just kind of a big overview. I'm going to go through kind of a little bit about our service and about how we design routes. In the meantime, I have a limited number of bus schedules I'm going to hand out. If you don't want them at the end, you can, I mean, if you do want them at the end, take them. If not, hand them back. We are on a small run right now. We'll continue to give them out to the public. But let's just give you an idea of our entire system as I'm talking through the presentation. So tonight, again, we'll go overview of our service, a route planning framework, and bus stops, land use context, street side, and curbside factors. So just an idea of city bus. We are a fixed route system within the city. Post-pandemic, we're at about 1 million riders. We have 13 routes. We also offer paratransit services, which are basically curb to curb services for those who are living with a disability that prevents them from using the bus. That fleet has special cutaway vehicles that can get people on and off. And then we also manage the transit mall. And we have a few other hubs, probably Cottingtown's the second biggest hub, but the transit mall is a regional hub. It probably has it's 30 buses a day, 3,000 bus trips a week. That's pre-pandemic, but it's a lot of service in and out. It's Mendocino Transit coming down from Mendocino County, and then there's Golden Gate Transit coming up from the city. There's also Greyhound, and then the two big ones are the county and city bus operating out of the transit mall. We also do have service from Amtrak, but that's at a different location. So that's kind of our service area. Yeah, feel free to ask questions along the way if well, we should probably wait till the end considering our technology issues. Okay, so I'll just move along. Our fares, we have our standard fare. We have adult fare, which is $1.50. We have a half price fare, obviously 75 cents, and that's for seniors and people with Medicare and people living with a disability. You can receive those standard fares by purchasing passes from our kiosk or online, but you can also get them where we've kind of trying to push people toward more and more is Clipper, where Clipper's the Bay Area wide fare payment system that allows you to ride any system in the entire Bay Area. And you can either buy, you can either put cash on it essentially. So each time you use it, it's just like using cash, or you can buy fare month passes on it as well. And you need Clipper to ride the smart train. You can also use an app, but you need the Clippers is kind of your access to the system. And then we've more and more tried to move with unlimited fare programs. Historically, city employees have been able to ride free. Paratransit registrants have been able to ride free. Paratransit registrants, the reason we do that is it's more expensive. It's $3 a trip when they take a ride on paratransit, and we give them a free pass to ride fixed route free. So that way they're incentivized to ride fixed route, and it's also less expensive for the public or our budget to provide that free trip. It's about $60 a trip for a paratransit, and it's probably around $10 a trip for fixed route for in terms of our cost. Santa Rosa Junior College, before the pandemic, I think it was 2017, had a fare free program with the county, and the city jumped on board, and then Petaluma, so all SRJC students ride free, and they have recently started taking part in a very unique program that MTC offers, which is it's called the Bay Pass program, and essentially all SRJC students can ride all Bay Area transit free. They're the only institution like that. There's other institutions who have segments of their population that can ride all transit free, but SRJC is the only one that all their students can ride free. Just recently, we allowed students, we always allow students 4 and under to ride free, but we use a program to allow students up through 12th grade to ride free. High school students just need to show an ID, but otherwise 8th grade and younger do not need to show an ID. They can just ride. And starting, I think this is the second academic year we've had that in place, and starting in July 1st, the county, with some of their PG&E funds, funded a program that's going to allow students countywide to ride free for up to 2 years. And we expect that we might be able to identify another funding source after that. So with including our transfers, almost half of our ridership rides free. So this is just some numbers in terms of what our service looks like before and after the pandemic. As you can see, you know, the use on transit really took a dive in the pandemic, and we have better ridership than some providers. And our youth ridership with youth ride free program really has doubled. You can see that with 25% currently and 12% pre-pandemic. And there's just some numbers there to get an idea of how our service is operating. This is taken into account that we also have less service on the street. So this is not just rider. I mean, more service generally means more trips. So we are about, I'm going to say 62% of our service is available on the street. So as we design routes, these are some of the design principles that we look for. Is obviously frequency. So one example of that would be the service that we have on Mendocino Avenue and Sebastopol Avenue, where we have 15-minute frequency. Right now on Mendocino, we're operating 20-minute frequency. That's just due to driver shortage. Our goal is to, pre-pandemic also, we had 15-minute frequency from basically from downtown to Petaluma Hill Road. Not a great distance, but you have basically half-hour frequency on the Route 3 and 5. So the idea is to extend that high frequency farther down Santa Rosa Avenue, and then eventually have more frequent service between downtown and Montgomery Village. So we'd have an X in town essentially with that 15-minute frequency. And so we currently, in 2017 we went through this exercise and we put in a new system, and there's also a phase 2 to that, which kind of suggests some of those changes which I showed to you. Another piece is strong anchors. Having large institutions with large ridership typically assist a route. Direct alignment, which and is kind of like where you're going to a location, you're staying on the main corridor. You're not jumping around and kind of going into narrow, small streets in the city. Then bi-directional, kind of trying to basically do the same thing you do outbound as you do inbound. So people don't have to say, oh, wait, is it on this? At one point we had service on Sonoma Avenue for maybe inbound and Montgomery Village for outbound. And so people had to be like, okay, wait, where am I catching? Where is it? So you want to basically kind of define your corridor and operate on that corridor. Spacing also is another factor. So, we don't have service on Montgomery and Sonoma just because the distance, is such a close walking distance. But there are drawbacks. I mean, like Montgomery Avenue, for instance, has the hospital, which was, that was a big choice to decide whether we were operating on Sonoma Avenue or Montgomery. So there's and then connectivity in terms of making sure transfers can happen, making sure people can get to where they need to go in a timely manner. So those are some of our design principles. And then a big thing that gets is productivity is that kind of high frequency that you see on the right there on the screen, and then coverage is kind of what you see on the left. And coverage is typically, for people who can't walk long distances or, there's a benefit to coverage because you're making it easy for people to get to it. There's also a benefit to productivity. Essentially, we're having high frequency on particular corridors. And so it allows people to really define those corridors, allows development to come in and kind of build around transit. It allows for that more higher density and more focused attention on locations. So then you have this different type of bus routes. You have the kind of the rapid bus routes, which are 15-minute frequency are much more productive, which I've described some of them. And then you have I'll say our service is more of the trunk routes. That's the 15-minute frequency. The rapid bus is more of like where you have kind of separate lanes, there's features that really would allow for quick on and off boarding. So we're more of the trunk routes. And then our local routes are kind of that more 30 to 60-minute frequency. And then we have some circulators. We have the Route 15 that operates from Southwest Community Park and serves Elsie Allen, and then comes up Stony Point, and then makes its way over to Coddingtown. So that's kind of a circular route where it doesn't go down to the central hub. So here's just an image of some of the areas that we're really aware of that need improved service. And we go through every 4 years, we go through what we call a short-range transit plan, which is required by MTC, which gives us some of our funding. So as we go through our current short-range transit plan, these are some of the areas that were identified that we know we need to focus on and additional service to those areas. So that's something that we're working on. So now we're going to jump into specifically the bus stops, that framework of how the buses, a lot of we sometimes get requests, can I get a bus stop? But we don't have a service on that route. So key to having a bus stop is kind of how the routes are designed and having a bus route there. Once you have a bus route there, then we can kind of get down into how can we get you a bus stop. So some of the elements for bus stop design are kind of land use context, like density, like we'll have more frequent bus stops in downtown than we necessarily do at the outskirts of town, just because there's higher density. There's the within the street design, do we have a turnout, or how does it operate with traffic? And then we have the curbside factors, in terms of do we have an ADA path of travel? Do we have a sidewalk? How much right of way do we have? Do we own the land? All those things. And then there's the stop elements. There's all the furniture or amenities that go there. Our bus stops evolve based off new infrastructure projects or new developments. So when we're touching a corridor, we advocate for what we think is best and work with the developer, work with our internal teams to make those comments. If we get requests from the public, which I'm always surprised that we don't get more requests from the public for new bus stops, but that's definitely a big driver. If we know about it, then that's something we can act on. And then just gaps that we identify. Like I know of some gaps that are kind of like on my project that I need to get to, but I haven't got to them, that would benefit from having someone from the public say, hey, what about this? And I'll be like, yeah, I agree. And then things to think about for the new bus stops, which I mentioned, some of them are just land ownership, pedestrian connections, spacing between stops, amount of ridership is a big one. And then just the safety factors in terms of how the operators are serving the stop and whether makes sense to have it at that location. So just some of the basic requirements, there are the bus stop improvements are our responsibility. And there is federal guidance around them, and in terms of where they need to go, it's like where it's practical for them to be located for boarding and alighting. How can we construct it? And what are some of the limitations there? And we even if a bus stop is at a specific let's say we have a bus stop at a specific location currently that doesn't serve somebody who needs to access it, we will provide reasonable modifications. Like our bus drivers will stop at a different location, or we'll look at the stop and we'll move it. So if there are individuals that have trouble getting to a particular stop for a particular reason, we'll figure out ways to work through that. But the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 basically drives a lot of what we do at the bus stops. Act on complaints, and NACTO, which is a website you guys could all go to it. They have a really nice guide on terms of like what are the elements of bus stops in much more urban areas and areas like ours. And some of the images I use later on in the presentation are from their site. So this is just kind of a bigger context of land use. A lot of times the image on the top right there where the development is kind of set back and there's a big parking lot between the development and the road. This is kind of some of the development style that you see in a suburban area that makes it really difficult for transit to serve it well, and makes it difficult for those that are using transit to access the buildings. And as you can see here, there's some progressively different designs that make it easier for transit to have an impact on how people get to that particular location. So that's an important factor in bus stops and their use. And then next slide here is kind of the street side factors. Where is the bus stop located? I mean, we basically want the bus stop to be located, and it doesn't necessarily show it on the slide, but you can see it on the images to the right, near a crosswalk. They say that basically there's 4 legs of a bus trip. It's walking to the bus stop, waiting at the bus stop, then you get on the bus and then walking to your final destination. So 3 of those 4 legs of that trip rely on the pedestrian network. So that's really where what we rely on for transit and serving people is, are there good sidewalks? Are there safe places across the street? And that's where we're going to co-locate our bus stops to that. So whether it's before the first side is far side in the lane, and then there's near side in the lane, and then there's mid block in the lane. So any of those need to be co-located with a bus stop. And then there's pullouts. So you can do the same thing for pullouts. You can have the bus stop pull out of the road. And then those images on the right, you can see, the top one that shows it in the lane. The sidewalk is coming out to where people are loading, and the bus is just pulling, it's not pulling in, it's just pulling straight. And you have a little bit of distance from the sidewalk, the crosswalk, to make sure that the crosswalk's not being blocked. That's number 1. Number 2 is this safe place for pedestrians. Number 3 is just showing spacing between buses. And number 4, I don't remember what it's showing. And then the second image below kind of shows where it takes more space for one single bus because the bus has to pull in. So you're using more, there's less space for parking, or, so these bulb outs are useful. They keep us in the lane, but they do slow down traffic too, which has its pluses and minuses. Okay, so next slide here, this is kind of the curbside factors. Pedestrian access, like I talked about, ADA access is critical. And when we say ADA access, you can see on the bottom image, there's a number 4, there's a 5x8 pad area. So that's really kind of, it's not only the sidewalk, but it's also having that 5x8 clear area. That's essentially where the bus lift can come down, sit on the sidewalk for four or half of that 8 feet. And then the other half that 8 feet is where the wheelchair gets off and has a safe place to sit before we lift the ramp back up, and then they can continue on their trip. So that's critical. So we can put a bus stop basically anywhere. We don't need a sidewalk. We don't need anything. We can put it in the ground. But as soon as we add a bench or trash can or shelter, anything, we have to meet the kind of strict rules of ADA. So there's a good example would be like on Fresno Avenue way in West Santa Rosa. There's no sidewalks on that road. We can stick a pole in, but we can't do more infrastructure. So that's in the county, that's how the county transit works. They're way off providing service to all areas of the county where there are no sidewalks, but they can put a pole on the side of the road, and that gives people access to transit. So some of the other features typically that we see are, shelter, bench, real-time information. Right now, we mostly have that at the transit mall, although we're working on a contract to get that at some of our other bus stops. But I'll explain how people can also get that from their devices a little later on. Bike racks, trash cans, lighting, signage, and art. So those are some of the elements that make up a bus stop traditionally. In these images that you're seeing here, besides the 5x8 area, I'll just say that where the shelter or bench is located kind of can vary depending on the property, the land that you're working with. Essentially you need as long as we have an 8-foot deep area, we can usually get those in. But if it's a short 8-foot deep area, then we don't really have the length to get the clear pad plus some of the infrastructure in. But generally we can, as long as we have 8 feet back of curb. And so we oftentimes will advocate for just 8 feet of sidewalk at a site, just so that later on we can come in and put a shelter in if ridership demands it. So I'll go back one slide here and just say, so that generally when we're putting shelters in, kind of at a staff direction, it's basically we're looking for more than 20 riders a day at a bus stop. That boardings, we say, not riders, but there's boardings, and then there's what we call deboardings is a lighting. So I don't know, I can't remember where the term comes from in transit, but it's boardings and lightings, but we just base off boarding. So if we have more than 20 boardings a day, we're aiming to get a bus stop in there. There's a few locations where we don't have the property at this point there's probably a handful where we can't make them ADA, so that's why we don't have them at those. But basically, all our bus stops with high boardings have shelters. And then basically between 20 and 10 riders a day, we're looking to put benches in. And so that would be an area that we would say, yes, let's put a bench in. Less than 10 riders a day, you know, we don't prioritize it for furniture. So I'll just give you, here's an example of kind of there's some good, bad bus stops. So you can see these bus stops all have sidewalk access to them, except for the one in the lower left corner has no sidewalk, but it's just a pole. The one kind of in the kind of center lower has is a shared stop. So there's city bus, Sonoma County, and Golden Gate on that bus stop. So we have some bus stops like that. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, you're seeing benches, poles, shelters, trash cans, kind of that variety. The one with the bike lane kind of going between the sidewalk and the bus loading area is not from Santa Rosa, but that would be a one that we'd be interested in seeing installed in high bike traffic areas. Yeah, so that's some good examples of good bus stops. Here's some bad ones. You know, the top right, you know, there's a shelter, but there's no sidewalk to get there. You know, no ADA access. Kind of the one middle at the top is from Santa Rosa, I believe. I could be wrong, but but you don't have the 5x8 pad. So you have a bench, but you don't have this distance where somebody can get on and off. So technically it doesn't meet the ADA. The one on the far right, you know, there's a bench and there's a sidewalk, but there's no connection between the bench and the sidewalk. So that doesn't meet ADA. And typically, if you're providing a bench, you also need kind of like a waiting area for somebody who's in a wheelchair next to the bench, which could be within that 5x8 area. But and the one kind of lower down, similar situation where there's no 5x8 waiting area, even though there is a bench. And then here's some fun ones. There's a lot of opportunities with bus stops to do placemaking. There's a lot of examples around the country. You know, we've thought about, you know, our bus stop vendor can take images and put them onto the bus stops, onto the shelters. I'm going to go back for a second here. You can see at the top right, there's that blue shelter. Those panels could have images on them. So, you know, we could incorporate local art, and Art Board suggested that, and I think there's just been a limitation in time, but that's definitely something that that's feasible. That'd be a very simple incorporation of art in the bus stops. But yeah, as you can see, with some money and some attention, we could have a lot of fun with bus stops. And that's so one more slide, I think. So at the bus stops, I talked about real-time bus information. So you can get real-time bus information with Google Maps. Is typically how I do my planning for bus routes in the entire country, really. And then Clipper also now has an app that you can have your fare on the Clipper app, and you can plan your trip on there basically using Google Maps. And then it also gives you real time when is the bus going to arrive. And there's also something called the Transit app, which provides that as well. City Bus, we currently have what we call it's called the My Stop app, and it provides real-time information only for city buses. But on that, you can actually see physically where the bus is, and you can kind of watch it move. And then you can also, for people who don't have a smartphone, you can text. Basically, you're texting the number of the bus stop to the 32123 number, and it responds and tells you when the bus is going to arrive at that bus stop. So we don't have a lot of the real-time information, but partly because people have it in the palm of their hands. Yeah, and that's concludes my presentation. I can take any questions.
All right, so thank you so much for that presentation. We appreciate that. And at this time, we'll recognize our members for any questions or comments. And I see Member Hung has a question or comment.
Yeah, so regarding the bus stop, how how's the process work? Let's say I want a bus stop on the house, who do I call? And then once I call them, you know, what's the process? You know, how long does it take?
Yeah. I think that, we have our main number are the folks that are, who provide the information. It's the 543-3333 number. And it's what's on all our schedules. So you can call that number anytime and make a request. It would probably then come to me or the other transit planner. And then we would, probably get back to you fairly quickly and kind of give you our quick assessment of the location. And then we kind of go from there, depending on what the, how complicated it is. If it's simply on a route that and it makes sense to, makes sense to us. There's a lot of things that line up. It can be fairly quick. I'd say probably 2 months. But if it becomes a longer, like we don't have the property, there's just a number of things. So I'd say it can be fairly quick, or there can be complications.
What do you don't have the property?
Well, we could stick depending on what you want from the bus stop, whether if we don't have the property to make it, if we don't have an easement for the property to make it ADA capable, yep, that would be the issue. I guess that's what I mean. Yeah. There's no right of way, there's no easement, that becomes problematic. But if there's right of way and there's easement and it makes sense, sometimes the issues we get into are the stops can be too close together, or it might not be, from the driver's standpoint, is it safe to stop there? It really just depends on the location. But we want to hear about it. We either want to have that conversation with you to say, oh, there's a bus stop, 300 feet down the road. Can you use that one? Sometimes it's no, I can't. And why can't you use that? Well, I can't walk that far. Okay, have you heard about paratransit? So a lot of times it becomes the request leads to providing information for somebody who might not have that information about how to access our system or use public transportation in general. Okay.
Thank you for that question. I am going to recognize Member Lange first, and then next is Member Diaz de Leon.
So I brought this item forward, and I just been observing. Really problematic was this particular stop, and I'll pass around if you want to see, but the stop is at the traffic light on Bellevue and Stony Point. And it's right outside of, not outside of LC Allen, you have to walk about a quarter mile from the campus entrance to get there. And so it's a bench and then the bus sign, and it's in the turn lane. Now, when I was 16 and driving, I would speed around the bus. And that's exactly what happened that day. I was standing there and a person that needed extra assistance and time to cross the street was in the crosswalk. And the students didn't hit the person, but good thing for anti-lock brakes, they were able to stop themselves. And so for me, it made me, I think about that route more deeply, because as you said, it needs to be 20 plus riders a day for shelter threshold. But because that route comes through Steel Lane, where I live past Comstock, none of those have shelters, and all of those students ride the bus. And they ride it all the way through and around, depending on where they live, between Rosa, Cottingtown, and that southwest corridor of North Piner, and Stony Point Road, where it comes back around. And a number of those stops are either a sign with a bench 40 feet away, like the cement style you showed, or there's a covering, but the sign is then 25 yards away. And I mean, it makes sense because sometimes, as you said, the infrastructure may not be there. But I think from an equity standpoint, how do we ensure we build to make it an incentive to ride the bus instead of an inconvenient to ride the bus, especially through that corridor of community where we have some of our varied income residents and students with families that may only have 1 or 2 vehicles with multiple students at different schools.
Agreed. let's look at those bus stops. I appreciate your attention to those and be happy to go over that more. I wrote down the Bellevue and Stony Point. And was there other particular locations?
Seal Lane in its entirety from Stony Point all the way through Gurnville, through the Gurnville weird turnabout by the mattress firm. All the way to there. Especially the one out in front of the ice skating rink. It is a both sleeping corridor and a signage issue, and it's not well lit. The next one is Stony Point and West 9th. It's one of those, as you described with Montgomery Village, people have to cross the street to go around to the other side to get around. I watched a woman one day, it took her 3 hours to go 4 blocks. I was tempted to just give her a ride, but I thought it would be weird, so I didn't.
So Stony Point,
And West 9th,
right? So it's the one right in front of like Ulia's.
the church on the corner. Where the, yeah.
Oh, it's on West 9th.
Yeah. on
It's
West
on-
9th. You'll link, yes. It's where the church is, that's all I remember saying.
Does someone,
Church of Rose.
can I use,
Oh, talking about resurrection.
Yeah.
West Third,
West Third,
West Third. Yeah.
yes, West Third. is Stony Point.
Resurrection Third, West Third.
Yeah.
Oh,
But Oliver's on the other side.
yeah.
okay, so the West Third one is on Stony Point
Who's on the corner?
and it's, oh yes, so it's, and is it northbound or southbound?
I don't know. I just saw people taking forever.
Oh, yeah.
Come around the block.
Yeah, that one, there is problematic ones there, absolutely.
And then the one on Stony Point, is it Stony Point? On that same shopping center area. And then, Sebastopol Road and Stony Point further up, but most of the stops to the east of Stony Point Road are a little shaky. The ones to the west, every other is covered or has the bench that's shabby.
Right.
Because the sidewalks, I don't imagine they should. That's all.
I have your contact too, so I'll follow up with more detail.
I just have to give member Lange a little props right there for all of that homework that you did. And thank you for divulging your 16-year-old self to us. I'm glad to hear that rider was okay, going across the crosswalk. So member Diaz de Leon.
Thank you, Yuri, for being here and presenting on transit to us. And thank you, Member Lange, for bringing this topic to us as well. My question is regarding something that you mentioned, Yuri, regarding residents. They're able to request modifications to accommodate them if they have a disability and can't reach the exact route.
Mhm.
How do they know that that's something that they can do? Are there ads to them? Are there ads in different languages? Is there some
How do they
kind of-
know they can request a bus stop?
How do they know they can request a modification? If there's a bus stop that's not close enough for them to somehow be able to get access to transit.
We talk about it on our buses, we talk about paratransit services. We talk about non-discriminate, there's a non-discrimination policy that really addresses race, national origin, and color that's on the buses. So and historic, it's stated on our maps, it's on our website. People don't have to know that that's what they're requesting. They can just make the request, and our drivers and our staff are supposed to be able to know that, recognize that if there is something we can modify, and we give trainings to our staff. Actually, today I gave some trainings to our driver safety meeting on the matter. Yeah, it's mostly through training and just being able to kind of counting on people to give us feedback.
Yeah. And then a follow-up question to that is, so for example, Member Lynch, they brought something very specific, which sounds like it was helpful to you. in terms of thinking through how to make improvements to transit. How can community members or residents know that they can do that as well? Because they may not even be thinking about it as they're walking down the street and are thinking, I would love to have a bus stop here, or it's really inconvenient to get from point A to point B, and I'm driving when I don't have to be. So I'm just kind of like trying to think through, especially in using us, or you know, just thinking about how community can be informed about that ability to reach out to your department and come up with these ideas.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, at one point we did have like a specific bus stop line, you know, but we found that, you know, it was like too many multiple phone numbers, and, you know, so at this point, yeah, you just call the main number and make those kind of comments and requests. And but yeah, we would be very, you know, if there was newsletters or strategies that, you know, and you know, just because we think we do know, you know, it may be time to do something different. So if you guys have any strategies or ideas around, you know, communities that we can better communicate with or provide presentations to, or place ads in newsletters or whatnot, or emails, you know, we'd be happy to field those recommendations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, Santa Rosa Community Health, I mean, if there may be posters in facilities, you know, I know you guys are, I'm guessing, are on North Dutton. Is that the location? Yeah. 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 So, yeah. 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 And there's a specific, there's some specific services we have that we're thinking about implementing for specifically North Dutton, because we used to have service there. Right now, the closest service is on either Grenville Road or mostly on College. So they have to make their way from College to there. But yeah, so any ideas you guys have, we'd be happy to entertain.
All right, thank you for that question. It sounds like we're getting questions with quite a bit of follow-up for you, Yuri. I want to let you know that our next questions will be coming from member Inocencio, and the lineup after that will be member Barnett, member Ram, and then our vice chair Weeks.
All right, so I just have two questions, one specific, one kind of more general, but the specific one is regarding Aston Avenue, the Colgan Avenue. And there's any discussion about having a bus stop there? I know there's a couple 55 plus communities there. And then on that same topic, is that something you look at when planning bus stops? Like communities that are more likely to use the bus. Anyway, so I would like.
Yeah. Interesting example you provided there on Colgan Avenue, because we used to have service there. And in 2017, we removed service from there. We had, in 17, we had more of kind of that coverage type service. And we switched to more where we were trying to reduce the number of corridors we operated on to focus on specific corridors. So for Colgan is a good example in that, you know, you have Petaluma Hill Road on one side to the east and Santa Rosa Avenue to the west. And so it's not a big walking distance, but for some of those communities, it's an impediment. And so we met with those communities multiple, you know, times. I went on site and we tried to inform them about paratransit, and then we tried to, you know, make sure those bus stops, particularly the one on Santa Rosa Avenue, could meet their needs. But the kind of the walkway along Colgan is not what it should be. We were able to remove we were able to have the asphalt path was improved. There was some major trees that made it so the wheelchair couldn't operate on it, and so we were able to do that, but we were not able to find the funding for the city to put a proper sidewalk in there. So that's what happened at Colgan Avenue. And you know, so the idea, you know, around you know, another example would be on on D Street, the senior home there that's just off D Street, where we used to have a bus route that went right to the front of that, and now we stay on D Street. And so there we did it, and same thing happened for off of what is it, Fourth and College, the senior housing over there. Now they basically have to get to 4th Street. So some people end up using paratransit, which provides the door-to-door, and that those that could walk the distance to a bus stop would make that distance. So so that some of the so yes, we take that into account, the communities or the locations and the neighborhoods that are there. But at the same point, we're trying to stay on the major corridors so that the service can maintain an expedited service so people can get to where they're going as much as we can for everyone. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And how it's part of balance. Right? But I guess my next question would be, do you have data on what bus stop have requested or like how many requested things like that? How's that track?
I do have a spreadsheet where we have requests, and it's basically just kind of a spreadsheet. We have information on ridership per bus stop, so we have that on per bus stop, but it's not in any kind of elevated form, and the bus stops requests are infrequent. I'll say that. Yep.
So I'm going to interject here before we move on to our next member's question. We do have a city staff from transit, I believe. No, from just a city staff person who has joined us online, Yuri, that would like to interject.
Great.
At this time. So they're being promoted.
Hey, Yuri, it's Lon Peterson with the communications department. I was just going to comment on the communications part. Happy to coordinate with you tomorrow or anytime next week on any of that comm related stuff to getting the message out. We put out a weekly newsletter which goes out tomorrow. Also manage social and a lot of other stuff. So we can definitely coordinate on all things communications and outreach. That's it.
Thanks, Lon.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you for that. Appreciate that information. And now onto our lineup. It's member Barnett, then Rom, and then Vice Chair Weeks.
I'm pushing buttons. So apologies. Nope. Maybe not. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Apologies to anyone on Zoom who is not hearing what I'm about to ask. So on the communication question, how to broadcast the bus stop request piece. The city of Santa Rosa does this newsletter called City Connections. And I think the person that leads that whole project is in the room. City. Oh, it's not you anymore. Oh, that just goes to show you how to touch I am, Danielle. I thought it was still your team. You're like, no, I moved up. Yeah, I was gonna say City Connections. And then what's going on with the Let's Connect website? That was my other question. Because that might also, I know that you guys have a potential user base with that. That could be another piece. And then I know at some point the CAB had a Facebook page that we broadcast out. We did for early CIG. So that might be another possibility of taking deliverables from transit and broadcasting it to that audience potentially. So those were the how to get it out there. And then my question, so I actually get to work with Yuri, so I'm pretty excited about this because we work on Bike Month, and which, by the way, Bike to Work Day, it's coming back because transit solves for one of the biggest challenges with biking to work, which Sonoma County, there's a first mile, last mile disaster, and a lot of people saw for it already with bikes. But one question I had for you had actually to do with SMART because, well, I ride a bike, so I solved the first mile, last mile problem with a bike from SMART to getting wherever. But at one point, I thought the idea was that the trains and the buses were going to sync. But one of the things I know is like when I'm downtown, I never see the bus in the downtown. So I'm guessing that isn't, I could just not be seeing it. But that was my question to you, was the first mile, last mile challenge of if you arrive at SMART, do you have to walk to the transit mall, or is there a route that I don't know about? Specifically to the downtown station, I think where SMART is located to Cottingtown, you would have to walk because I don't think there's anything convenient with that site. But I'm just wondering about downtown. I know there's the kiss off part of what they've got set up for SMART, but I'm going to ask you specifically about the bus route down there. Is that am I just missing the route for when the buses connect, or did that not happen and people actually have to walk to transit? That was my question.
Yeah, so for the SMART and downtown transit mall connection, we have, if you're looking at your map, you'll be able to see it, but we have basically 10 buses an hour that go between the transit mall and pass by this, pass through Railroad Square. And we know we need to make improvements, and part of it's around the development of there's city has a project connecting to the bike path on the south side, and then there's the development on the north side. So some of that will get improved, but essentially Route 2 and 2B, which serves Sebastopol Road, and Route 12 basically get you to the SMART station and so and then there's also the Route 6 and the Route 9. And so those all go right by the SMART station. And it is a little confusing because there's 3 different bus stops and it's not super obvious, but Route 6 and Route 9 will drop you off right on the path leading to the SMART station. The Route 2, 2B, and 12 will drop you off on Railroad Street. So you just have to cross 3rd. And then on your way back into the transit mall from the SMART station, essentially there's one bus stop there in front of the Hyatt that serves all those routes. And so you have 10 buses an hour making that, making that connection. That all being said, we do hear that it's not obvious, and can we continue to work with SMART on signage and then those bus stops? We would like to see, and we're working traffic engineer that the Route 2, 2B, and 12 would basically stay on 3rd Street to Dutton and then make their way to Stony Point. That way, we would put everything on the same corridor, same bus stops. That would slightly simplify things. We do have serving the North Station up at Cottingtown. We have the city obviously has the bike pedestrian bridge coming, kind of being designed from the JC, and then right there's a bus stop there in Edwards, which is what serves Amtrak. And so eventually we've met with Amtrak, and so eventually Amtrak will likely move to more of the Cottingtown location. So then there's that gap. How do you fill the pedestrian bridge to Cottingtown gap? And then there's the gap from Cottingtown to the SMART station. We do have some plans for Route 9 that would go, I think, Adriana DeLeon, you mentioned serving North Dutton, and that same route would serve North Dutton and make its way past the SMART station and then make its way to Cottingtown. So we have some plans in the works for North Cottingtown, but everything's basically, we're working on it.
All right, Member Rom.
There you go. Sharing is caring. So I noticed, the slides weren't numbered, but there was one that was called route planning, and the youth doubled from 12% to 25%. Is that because it's free? Is that the only reason you think?
Coming out of the pandemic, it was one of the first programs that we offered that was new, and students were coming back. So there's this bit of like when, for the JC, for instance, you get a lot of ridership right at the beginning of the semester, and then drops off as you get closer in December. and it drops off for most of the year. So I think what we did is I think we launched it at a time where we were able to create patterns for students. And they found that it worked. But I would say that, yeah, making it free really removed a hurdle because at one point we would sell passes we would give passes to the schools to allow them to then give it to the student or sell it to the students essentially. And so we've removed that barrier. And so that's, there's been a lot of free fare programs that, you see 100-200% improvements, and this is one of those where.
And will that continue? Is that going to continue?
The fare free program for
Yeah,
youth?
yeah.
Yes, city has funding through the end of June, and then the county funded a county-wide program. So it'll be free fare county-wide on Sonoma County, Petaluma, and City Bus for 2 years, starting July 1st.
Oh, good. So that's
And-
so no matter what, we're through 2020.
Yeah. And then we measure M, go Sonoma. There's a chance that could continue the funding. For that program.
And then when you talk about ridership and the investment into the bus stop based on usage, right?
Mhm.
So I guess you guys track who gets on, gets off at each stop.
Yeah.
So
Not who, but
Well,
we track
people.
number, yeah,
people, yeah.
location and number, yeah.
So Coffee Park, obviously rebuilt. It used to be on Hopper and Coffee Lane. It was on Hopper. Now it's been moved to Coffee Lane.
Right,
Lost amenities.
right.
Is it? So when
I think there's a project
yeah,
that,
there's a couple projects, but the bus stop's not on the project right now. But if that project.
yeah, on Hopper,
On Hopper.
yeah. So I think, yeah, they're, I reviewed that project recently. I think we're moving the bus stop back to Hopper with a I don't know if it's a shelter, it might just be, I don't remember.
Before it was a bench, trash can, pole,
Right,
and the ridership was what it was.
Right.
Do you feel that putting coverage and making the bus stop more attractive, more inviting, increases ridership?
I've seen it both ways. Where, I mean, we have examples where we've had to remove bus stops because people end up sleeping in the bus stop, or it attracts the type of activity that we don't want at bus stops.
Airway and Hopper.
Not at Airway and Hopper, not.
Oh, Airway and Hopper is horrible.
Okay.
Airway and Hopper.
Okay.
Yeah, I have neighbors that don't even go to that bus stop in the dark.
Right.
So.
So we've removed we've removed shelters for that reason, and it's, I mean, the biggest one would be Sam Jones, I think,
Oh, yeah.
where we had to remove the bus stop there because there was just too much activity. I think we just removed the shelter. It's still a bus stop, but we removed the shelter, and that really cut down on the activity. So it really depends. I think the shelter really just provides assistance in the rain or in the really hot sun. A tree can do it in the hot sun. I think when you get into real, when I think the best thing for a bus stop is when a community helps to own it, because as a transit facility, we can respond to issues that come up, but we can't be there all the time. So I think that's probably the best thing is when a neighborhood really begins to own the bus stop and makes it asks us to throw in resources and has some ownership to it, whether that's to have a shelter or not have a shelter, or have a bench or not have a bench, to have art or not, I think that's probably the best thing for, I've never, I've read some statistics around and some reports around, improvements in ridership connected with facilities at bus stops. But it kind of goes both ways.
Well, we can reach out to you for that bus stop specifically.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Weeks.
Already unmuted, so convenient. My first question was actually related to the funding that you mentioned. I'm assuming with MTC, the funding is largely derived from OBAG, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. what is the share of funding that stems from MTC as it's, invested in terms of like the dollars that we get from them and that we're able to use as a larger portion of our investment package locally here in the community? And then also, do you know what the share is relative to other jurisdictions? Are we kind of getting the short end of the stick? I know it's often the case that we don't get as a great of investment. We're the forgotten borough of sorts here in the North Bay. So that's the first one.
Yeah, I'm not the finance guy, so I don't have the
Okay.
numbers to roll off my head. But I do know that, we a lot of it's TDA funding, state sales tax that then gets sent to MTC and then gets distributed to the transit agencies throughout the Bay. There's formula funding. So it's based off our population. And I think it's dedicated to Sonoma County, and then we split it up with the bus operators. Golden Gate gets some of that. It's based off there's a formula. So I don't know that I could say that. I mean, I think there is generally that there's many different examples of situations where there's a critique that maybe the small operators like City Bus might not get the finances that some of the big operators in the Inner Bay get. But essentially we get made pretty whole. We at this point, we're not dealing with a financial shortage. Really, the issue that we're facing right now is the lack of drivers. And that's really what's preventing us from having more service out in the street. But to have a further financial discussion, we probably want to talk with our deputy director to better understand those pieces.
The other question I had was, and you might have already mentioned this, and forgive me, I've not had a lot of sleep. How do you make determinations around, I think someone sort of mentioned this, determinations around essentially opportunity zones or equity opportunity zones, like case in point, I believe one is actually centered around the ice rink. And there's a project going in soon, a housing project, hopefully, if it gets approved. That happened tonight, so I don't know. There's a 1 acre parcel right across the street from there. Soon that could serve quite a few new families, and it's an equity opportunity zone.
Yeah, I think I know the project you're talking about. It's kind of on the south side of
correct.
Steel, and we have a bus stop very close proximity to that. So
so that would be the one that serves that area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and there's one across the street from it. I mean, if we have, when a development comes in, we would prefer the bus stop to be located in proximity to that development, we'll make that comment. Usually it's because it's closer to the crosswalk or there's a gap. But yeah, essentially like a bus stop on one property will serve, a quarter mile is essentially an acceptable walking distance. That's a 5 minute, that's a 6 minute walk, 5 minute walk. They say, it takes 20 minutes to walk a mile or 20 to 30 minutes to walk a mile.
Do you ask those projects to put in like carve outs? Because obviously that street is pretty busy. And that's one of the biggest complaints it's so much traffic over there.
Yeah, I think that bus stop there that's at the corner of West Steel and Range has a pull out. Yeah. Sometimes, if I know our traffic engineer really likes to pull outs because it gets out of traffic.
Exactly.
If there's 2 lanes, it's less important to have a pull out because you can have 1 lane that can be passed in and it's, and it doesn't take as much right away. But, we'll operate in, depending on the location, the traffic engineer and our division will decide what kind of comments we want and what's feasible to construct.
Okay. And then my last quick question, I'm just curious, because you said you showed some essentially very creative bus stops, which I don't think we have any of those in the city of Santa Rosa. Has there been interest registered by the community to consider something like that? Maybe as, part of a revitalization of a neighborhood?
I have not. Let's see. I mean, we talked with the art board at one point about bus stops and art, and so I think there was some interest from an art perspective, but I've not heard interest specifically from a community, like from a neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, it's a member Rob's point. The only reason I bring it up because you know, if you make it inviting or attractive, you put it in the right place, you know, more people might actually end up starting to use it. And as someone that works in housing, I always like to see ways in which we can kind of bridge that.
Yeah.
And then really start to spur more people to use those alternative modalities, get around town. And
Yeah.
that starts and ends with really creating an inviting space. And so I understand it's complicated though.
Totally. And when we have developments, we'll say, you know, we have a standard bus stop that you can use, but we oftentimes say, you know, we're happy if you incorporate the bus stop into your architecture. So the Dutton Flats development, where they put a kind of carve out into the building, that was doesn't make it an afterthought. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, if we're able to, you know, have more inviting locations, I think it just raises our profile and the profile of transit and alternative commuting in general. So I mean, it's definitely something that we're interested in working on.
Great, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for all of that. I do want to follow up with a couple questions of my own. One of which is actually from a writer that is wheelchair bound. So does have some of those the issues around ridership, but instead of around where the bus stop is located, it's around times of availability, and specifically being able to attend meetings like this that are held in the evening. This person does the bus everywhere, and would love to be involved in these types of activities and community involvement, but is unable to because of the bus times that are not available. So how do they approach that? And what is that determined because we have a lack of drivers at this time? What's the barriers in that?
Yeah, great question. And you know, when we have the reimagining city bus, which was a planning it was our planning document that we culminated in 2016-17, and what that really it changed a lot of the routes, and the kind of the next to-dos on that were extend hours of service. And I think that's very consistent that we hear that, it's really, at one point we would have said it's a financial thing, financial issue. At this point, it's definitely a driver shortage issue. Yeah, so I think it's both. But without a doubt, for our communities to not have service really after 8 o'clock really limits a lot of people. And that need has been identified in all our plans that when we've gone to the public. And it's usually you'll see it in our surveys a lot when we're trying to do planning. It'll be, would you like more service? Would you like later service? Would you like higher frequency? And that's definitely one of the questions. So, in terms of how to get there, with post-pandemic, it's going to take us to have riders, and then drivers, and then it's going to take probably community advocacy or some additional funds that we can expend. Not a great answer, but I think it's not a unique request. I mean, it's definitely something. I would say it's our highest priority.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either, a lot of times we'll ask, do we want more service on Sunday? Do we want to make Sunday service like Saturday? I think because we actually have quite a bit of ridership on Sunday, even though the hours are less. And then the next thing is in the evenings. Those are the two big requests.
And just to follow up on that, as well as another question, but, this post-pandemic world that we're quickly moving into, during the pandemic, we had so many opportunities for people to be involved and be a part of meetings, that were their city meetings or different, community organization meetings on Zoom. And now we're moving into hybrid and more in person. So, I just definitely want to elevate that, request for those extended hours,
Mhm.
and also maybe, an investigation or, some way to connect with a public-private, partnership in those ways. So that those extended hours could happen, especially for those people that have ambulatory issues, or disabilities. So just a comment on that. My other question is, getting the information out to people. And we have these district meetings coming up. So we have this district meetings, that we just talked about, the town hall meetings, and each district will be doing a meeting, and the CAB members are going to be involved. And I think that, that's an opportunity for transit to also get information out to people. But once again, also availing the opportunity for people to come to the meetings, because sometimes we have these opportunities for people in the community, but then no way for them to have, the ability to attend. So, I know hybrid meetings will help that, but I don't know that these town hall meetings will have that capability. So if there is ever any possible way to coordinate with different functions of the city, so that when there is an opportunity for the public to come out and meet for a town hall, or meet about, the in response, programs or other programs with the city, to link up the transit services so that more people could attend those meetings. That would be something.
Yeah, I would, and I'm not part of planning those meetings, but yeah, location and time, I mean, in terms of access to transit, yeah.
So I really thank you for, I have one more question
Yeah, please.
before I go on with that appreciation. So, Member Land.
Not so much a question, but a brief snippet of something I think that transit can consider. My brother started the transit program because he felt like it was a good way to get a government job and have stability. But, the morale was really low of everybody he encountered. So as somebody who's under 30, it was intimidating to hear from so many miserable people and be confronted with having to work with them on a daily basis and find what little bit of joy the job could provide for him. And contractually, he would have been bound to a 12-month rotating schedule, which would essentially mean he would be able to see his child. And so when we think about opportunities and, intergenerational connectedness and hiring practices and scheduling we offer for folks, a glimpse of hope to know, like, I'm gonna be able to work around this and work with my family dynamics or structures, I think would be really key to inciting interest in folks from a younger generation who may also still be working multiple jobs or have, we all know there's no daycare available, so that poses an issue for families. That was definitely a catalyst for him not completing the program.
Yeah, we have a group of drivers that are the ones that get to bid on a standard schedule, and they get to pick their schedule. And then there's the new drivers, and I'm not part of how that's set up with the new drivers. Yeah, they basically have to be there when the rest of the work is available, and that's how they make their way up into those full-time positions.
Who is young, having to essentially possibly work 7 days a week on a rotating shift is daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are some of the issues why we maybe don't have enough drivers, is that it really, the job, it's a great government job, but it does require a very available schedule to get through the initial stages of it. Yep. Thank you for that feedback.
So I want to thank you, Yuri, for your just diligence with this and bringing the presentation forward, but also for your listening ear this evening. We certainly threw out a lot of questions and comments about something that I know is so important to the infrastructure of our community and to so many people's lives, being able to get from one place to another. And also really appreciate all of the free programs that the transit has been able to enact. And looking at more. We did hear you when you said that you're down in drivers and
Mhm.
looking to acquire more drivers, and great points by Member Lange about some of the equity issues around that and whatnot. So not without challenges. I also want to thank all of our members tonight for bringing all of the questions. And once again, just point out Member Lange for initiating getting this presentation to the Community Advisory Board. I'm sure that there'll be some follow-up in the months to come. So thank you so much for your
Yeah,
time.
well, thank you all for your great comments, valuable, and these are the kind of comments that a lot of times we don't get. So you know, thank you for representing the community, and please have us back, transit back. You know, our deputy director would be happy to come back too, and we could talk about finances, we could talk about a number of different things. We will have a short range transit plan if that's something that's appropriate to bring this committee. You know, that's where we're getting into where the routes are going and some more of the details. So we'd be happy to come back, and we'll follow up with some of you individually on some of your comments as well. Thank you so much.
And before you step out and go catch a bus.
Not happening right now.
No.
Yeah, no. Let's bring it to public comment really quickly, just in case.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
All right, I hear that there are no hands raised for public comment. So once again, Yuri, thank you so much, and we'll see you dart away.
Thank you so much for
we'll be looking
having
for
me.
you on those buses, though.
Absolutely, please do.
All right, thank you. So that concludes scheduled items number 6.1. We're moving right along to item number 6.2, but it is close to 8 o'clock. And I just want to provide a 5-minute break if that is something that is needed. Most of us are here in-house, and there are a facility right around the corner and to the right. So without objection, without objection, should we take a 5-minute break? I'm not seeing an objection. I'm not seeing a hand raised.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it's not as close as, all right. So I'm hearing an objection. Okay. So we're going to continue on. Unless there is someone strong feeling that, but so we're going to be moving right along to item number 6.2. And our 2022 Q4 Community Improvement Grant application selection. I believe, Daniel, you're doing this. All right, thank you. I think that you have the Community Improvement Grant Program update right there. So you're gonna go through that and then go into the actual grant application. Am I correct?
Yeah. Okay, so for all the new, right? Yeah, I'm good. For all the new CAB members and current CAB members, the Community Group Improvement Grant Program. Each year, City Council provides CAB funding for the Community Improvement Grant Program. The goal of the program is to support community building, improves neighborhoods, strengthens city relationships with the community, and funds Neighbor Fest, but that's currently suspended at the moment. Community groups can apply for up to 2,500. This includes neighborhoods or community groups, formal or informal, schools, nonprofits, and services clubs. So For this quarter, we had one eligible application from Maria Cardenas. The project name is MMIW Ribbon Skirts, and the amount requested was $16.90 with 80 cents. So that's like the total funding request for this application for this quarter. So as you can see, like this is where our budget is right now. The total starting budget was 82,661. 2020 project total is to 12,256. 2020 project totals to 41,651. And then 2022 current project totals quarter one, quarter two, and quarter three only is 21,640, which leaves us with a budget remaining of 7,114. Yeah. So I kind of went through that pretty fast, but yeah, this application that came in quarter four was of 1690.80 as mentioned before for the ribbon skirts from Maria Cardenas. So that leaves us, I guess, for this part with questions.
I'm not familiar with this, so I saw like 80,000 and then there's the 2020, 2021, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean this funding is run out essentially?
Yeah, it's obviously declining. Yeah.
So, make sure that I'm unmuted. Okay. So first, let's do a little bit of a procedure here. Are we opening it up to questions first, and then we will shoot for, we're doing questions right now on the presentation about CAB grants in general. And then we will move to the CAB grant application that we have. So, Henry, just, you're opening it up right now to your question about the CAB grants in general and the funding. You can, we can, yeah, it's for this presentation right now. So you can ask that question, yeah.
All right. Did everybody hear the question?
Yeah. Sorry.
He already asked the question. Okay, so yes, so normally what happens is the council will allocate $35,000 per year to the Community Advisory Board for this grant program. However, because of the pandemic and because of a variety of other factors, the fund balance kind of built up and kept building up to where we had a really large amount. And so they decided to stop allocating those funds until we spent the fund balance down. So now we're getting to a point where, okay, great, we're going to spend this down. So the city's about to go into its next budget cycle. And so we will ask the council, okay, we've spent the money down. It's time to start reallocating those funds again. So we will be asking for the full 35,000 for the new fiscal year, which starts July 1st.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at this time, are there any other questions from CAB members? Looking around the room, I see. And I have Vice Chair Weeks.
Forgive my aged memory. Remind me, how often can someone apply for a grant? Is it once per year, once every other year?
So with the grant program, typically we ask applicants to abstain. So if they get funding one year, we ask them not to apply the following year. And then they can reapply again after they've taken that year off. But the focus of their project has to be different than the last time. So we can't have this be an ongoing thing where we continually fund the same exact thing over and over again.
And with that, a little bit of clarity, I think that we probably have staff at some point do a look at all of the CAB grants over the past year, or maybe a little bit more, because I think that we have done a CAB grant to a recipient back-to-back years. And in fact, they waited for their program to have been completed and the year and then to come back. So it was a previous staff understanding that it was just year to year and that they had to wait that 12 months. So that might be, so I just want to make sure that that gets looked into and that some clarity around that comes back to the cab. Because I'm recalling not only just one, but maybe two that have done that. So I understand your statement, Danielle, but I know that we've operated differently. So that might be something to look at and just kind of do a full scope of what has happened so far, and then make sure that we're very consistent moving forward. And I know that there are some changes and some transitions coming up, but I just need to state that out loud. So, so at this there we go. So let's, at this time, let's go to public comment for the CAB grant presentation that Daniel just made.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
With no hands raised, we'll move on to the second part of this, as I understand it, which would be about our Q4 CAB grant application. There's, Daniel, I'm looking at you. Is there a presentation with that, or are we just moving right into questions about that CAB grant application? Yes. So we're moving. Did you unmute for that answer? There you go. So it sounded like Daniel answered the question saying that we're moving directly into questions for the CAB grant applications. To remind our members that this is for the MMIW ribbon skirts project. And we are all given that application as a link in our agenda. So are there any questions or comments? And I see Member Barnett's hand up.
Motion to approve the CAB grant application for the ribbon skirt.
Second.
So we have a motion from Member Barnett and a second from Member Diaz de Leon. Can we go to a roll call vote at this time?
All right, I'll start with Chair Graves.
Yes, approved.
Thank you. Vice Chair Weeks,
Approved.
Member Barnett,
Approved.
Member Hong,
Approved.
Member Inocencio, Member Lange, Member Diaz de Leon,
Approved.
Member Rom, Member Rodriguez not here, Member Sierra, and Member Stephanie.
Approved.
Oh, let that be known that everyone in attendance has approved this Q4 grant for the MMIW ribbon skirts.
And I apologize. I did do a procedural error that was supposed to go to public comment before we took the actual vote. I want to check with staff at this time. Were there any hands raised? And I'm getting being told no.
There were no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. So there were no hands raised, so that procedural error will get strike from the record. So I just want to note with this that this is an application that I just thought was absolutely wonderful. And I want to also make mention that the state of California has now instituted an alert for missing Indigenous women and women of color, and that it goes right along with our Amber Alert system. I believe that was approved and starts very, very soon. And I just thought that that was great to have this come forth right around that same time. And it's a wonderful program that our state is now instituting. So I hope everybody is aware of that. That finishes out item number 6.2, and now we're going on to item number 6.3, which is issues of concern to city residents, and this is a standing agenda item where cab members can report on issues of concern and to the community members within their cab areas and the city as a whole. Community members may use public comment during this time to bring issues of concern also to the cab. So are there any cab members who have issues of concern to city residents? Raise your hand. And member Inocencio, you have the floor. Here you go.
All right. All right, so the issue of concern I was reporting was just Civic Ready, and it's not performing as well as Nixle was. And in particular, during the recent rains, people were reporting that some of the messages were going to their spam folder. And the website to sign up is only available in English. I haven't confirmed that that's the case, but I heard of that reported multiple times. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, are there any other issues of concern from cab members at this time? Okay, then I will bring up one that I know of is there's a recent report that as of yesterday, there were arrests made with the kind of car sideshows, correct, the car sideshows. It has been mentioned to me that hopefully this can be an opportunity for restorative justice, being that these are all young men of color, and some very, very young that were arrested as it proceeds to a potential trial type of a situation. So I know that this is an issue of concern to all of the city residences that have been affected by sideshows, but just bringing in that human element to having someone's life affected by a sideshow situation where they were promoting it. So I wanted to bring that forth because community members have mentioned that themselves. So, and restorative justice is a wonderful program. And I know that there are judges here in Sonoma County that are on top of that, but if that can make its way throughout the city as well, then I'm happy to elevate that comment. So at this time, for item number 6.3, can we go to public comment?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. That closes out item number 6.3. And at this time, we're going to future agenda items. I think we had one mentioned earlier. This is the tentative schedule and it's subject to change. We've got in February, a presentation for in response, and ongoing coming up is implementing strategic planning. For those of you that are new, that was something that we started quite a while back, and that's something to continually touch upon and to have the staff bring into the agenda in ongoing months. Also, there's the My Santa Rosa app presentation and the Santa Rosa general plan update, and potentially in March. Also at this time, I want to provide some information to the rest of the cab that tonight is my last meeting with the cab. I am stepping down. and moving on to other responsibilities, including a new position. Those of you that know me just a little bit, you know that I just beat cancer, breast cancer last year. I finished all of my treatments in August. And while I was working last year, I did take some time off starting in October to reevaluate what I wanted to do, and have taken on a position as an event facility manager in downtown Santa Rosa with a historic facility, the Saturday Afternoon Club. So, and I also do quite a bit of volunteer work, and I've been hiking a lot during my recovery from cancer, and I have got myself appointed to the Measure M Parks Community Oversight Committee with the county. So it has been a pleasure to be part of the Community Advisory Board since the end of 2019, and for the last 2 years to be the chair of this board. We've given out over $75,000 worth of grants and have persevered through a pandemic and a lot of virtual meetings, and had members on our board throughout that time that I have yet to meet in person, and I hope to meet them one day. So I wanted to, before we end this meeting, to let you all know that and really share my thanks to the staff and to the members for making this such an enjoyable time for myself and really extremely worthwhile. I also want to take just a minute for each of our current members to say a little bit about themselves, because we tend to not do that. We tend to introduce the new members, and then our current members don't get a chance to say much. And I wanted to make sure that you guys got off to the right foot before I pass on the gavel. So I would like to start with member Barnett, and then move around the room, and then I'll come around this way.
Howdy, folks. I will do introductions with you next month because I am missing out on Shadioki with my husband right now. So I'd really like to be done with this meeting right now.
And that's great. Member Lange. Thank you, Member Lange, and Member Inocencio. Yeah.
My name is Jorge Inocencio. I've been on this board now since 2020. So what is that? 3 years now. I'm also on a number of things, and I enjoy being on CAB to be able to provide feedback and feel involved in my community. Some things I do for fun is I'm also a coach. I coach rugby. So Coach is here, and that's about it. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And Vice Chair Weeks.
Thank you. Quick note related to this item, and you can talk after, but I would very much enjoy an opportunity to speak with Marquisha or Darielle, one of the two, about their kind of vision for community engagement and kind of get that one-on-one conversation going. So if we could have that discussion, we talked about it. I don't know what happened. Sorry, again, aged memory. Forgive me. I've forgotten. Callum Weeks, policy direct. I mean, they all know me, so I'm mostly gonna look this way. I'm a policy director for a housing organization, really passionate about, creating communities that are sustainable long-term that, can support, all folks, whether, you be a child in our community or a family that is just trying to find their way. So, really passionate about community engagement as well. I've been on here for, Sheree, what is it, like 4 or 5 years now, something like that? I know, time is so fluid. I was here, then I wasn't, then I came back again. And then, yeah, in my free time, I'm just always working on a bunch of odd knickknacks in the former mayor's garage because I don't have anywhere else to go. So I bum off of him. Yeah.
Thank you. And Member Rom.
My name's Steve Rom. I am a resident of Coffee Park, former president of Coffee Strong, fire survivor, and was appointed by Tom Schwedhelm 2 years now. This will be my 2nd year. And through the fires, just got more engaged with the community and here I am. Short and sweet.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate that because I know that as a new member, when you're coming in and you don't know everybody on the board, is really important just to hear a few words from everybody so that you can kind of start to make those connections. You are all what makes the community very strong. So thank you so much for your time and energy. And are there any public comment for item number 7?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. And item number 8, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, that was Lange and Rom. And everybody, thank you so much for your time.